Hello everyone and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. This morning we want to begin by talking about worker safety as it relates to the cattle industry. SUNUP's Austin Moore headed out west to Elk City for our story.
I have an opinion that we should be proactive, take a proactive approach towards being transparent with the public on how we care for these animals and how we really do try to do what's best for them day in, day out.
Brandon Hickey's Elk City Livestock Auction sits within a stone's throw of I-35.
We're open to the public. Anybody that wants to can come and see exactly what's going on and what's being done. And we've got a really good crew here anyway, but you can always be open to learning new things. We're educating all of our employees to try to say, okay, this is the best way to do that. How do we go about this? How do we take care of these animals and make this as smooth a transition in their lives as possible?
With the increase of the oil and gas industry, he was losing lots of workers, and the people he was hiring had little or no experience in livestock production or handling, and so he was really interested in trying to get those cattle from point A to point B in a very low stress and an economical way to benefit everybody's bottom dollar.
To address those concerns, Hickey, along with the Oklahoma Beef Council and the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service, brought in renowned cattle handling specialist Kurt Pate.
But you guys here, you got to work every single kind of animal that's in the world. Some of them are dog gentle, some of them are wild, some of them are hooky. And if you don't change to fit those cattle, then you're only right part of the time.
When you read cattle, they are either in thinking mode or survival mode. And if you put too much pressure on for too long where they can't get it off, then they go into survival mode. And that's when they get mad or they try to jump, and it's a bad deal. So you got to be able to take the pressure off as well as put it on.
Pate's goal is to teach these workers to keep livestock in that thinking mode through what he calls effective stockmanship.
When I think of effective, it's something that's effective for the rancher, that works for him. He'll get his job done, get his calves worked, get them loaded, whatever. And we do it in a profit mindset, so that's effective. But it also, when you work cattle properly, it's effective for the consumer. And they can feel good about the way we produce or raise these animals or work with them to get them produced. And so it's effective on that side too.
The whole technique is really to instill a little bit of that anxiety by putting a little bit of pressure on the animal, knowing when to take that pressure off and how to steer the animals once you've got that pressure on them. And then they will cooperate and learn over time what it is you want them to do, and do that at a low stress level, which is beneficial for everyone, both the workers and the animals.
In the sale barn atmosphere, everybody's always thinking, hurry, hurry, hurry. You've got to get these cattle run through. And there's some things that you can do that somebody like Kurt will bring up and show you that, you know, you can slow down and sometimes get a whole lot more done than when you're pushing hard all the time. Or there's some way you can take something just a little bit different and step just a little bit different. I mean, the details and the angles that you're working, sometimes you can change them up just a little bit and speed the whole process up. And you've actually taken less steps than you've been when you were trying to hurry so fast before.
The clientele here in Beckham County is not getting any younger. They're just not as limber and quick and fast as they used to be, and so they need to know how to handle cattle and be a little bit better around them.
Pate's visit began with a Thursday night meeting for producers.
We had people who you might think is novelists show up. We had people who we would think is seasoned veterans in the cattle industry. We had lots of people even from the Custer County and Washita County Master Cattlemen's Association show up and do some work as far as for their points to make sure that they can become master cattlemen. So we had a large variety of people there with a lot of different diversity as far as backgrounds show up.
Then the focus turned to the sale barn staff.
Today we were out here, we watched the sale, and we're currently working with the employees, going through the facilities, talking about problems that they may see, you know, just working on handling with them.
People are pretty good, but what's worse is the sunlight as the day goes on.
Okay, that's a good point.
Yep. You'll see them start jumping their shadow, especially right here.
Auction markets are a real dangerous place to work. Workman's comp is a huge thing, and there's always little injuries happening, and when you work cattle safely and effectively, the injuries for both human and animals go down.
If you think about it, these cattle can be anywhere from 1,500, 2,000 pounds. These are very large animals. There are numerous reports where people have been crushed and died, have been injured severely beyond repair sometimes, just because they don't understand how that animal is going to work in certain enclosed structures, or within the vicinity of a squeeze chute, or out on pasture, around fence lines and so forth.
You want it to be safe for your animals. You want it to be safe for your employees. If you're constantly handling the cattle in such a way that they're thinking and understanding what you're doing, then the cattle have less stress on themselves.
The easier we can handle those cattle and the more effectively we can handle them, the less weight they're going to lose when we're getting ready to ship them. So it's just really good for everybody.
Safer for the animal, safer for the employee, and more profitable at that. And all based on a simple principle.
There are certain things that work. Do them. There are certain things that don't work. Don't do them. But I see people doing things that don't work over and over again, and every once in a while it'll accidentally work, so they keep doing it. So I think people need to set back, analyze, and really check out their cattle handling skills. And practice. Just don't keep yelling and screaming and doing the same old thing. Change it where it's effective, and it works every day, every time.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to your Mesonet Weather Report. Now, I know this is going to come to a big shock to most of you, but yes, I'm going to talk about the drought. Unfortunately, that remains the big story through much of October and November. So let's take a look at the latest U.S. Drought Monitor report. Unfortunately, as you can see, the red and brown has begun to spread across the state again, and now nearly all the state is back in an at least extreme drought, that D3 or red color. And this has worsened since late September. We had some rains in September. That rain has pretty much gone away in October and November. So there we see the spread of drought once again. Speaking of that October and November rainfall, let's take a look at the Mesonet totals for those 2 months. You can see very little rainfall has occurred in October and November. Really not even a quarter of an inch in much of western Oklahoma. Take a look at the Oklahoma Mesonet sites at Hollis and Bessie. They had 1/10 of an inch of rain over the last 2 months. So really dry out there. Now let's take a look at the percent of normal rainfall for October and November. You can see less than 40% of normal for much of the state, and less than 20% of normal for the western third and also north central Oklahoma. Statewide, we had an average of 1.68 inches over the 2 months. That's more than 4.3 inches below normal, and about the 5th driest October-November on record. So really bad timing for this drought. Now, as I've talked about many times, this drought really got a kickstart back in spring when the rainfall started to go away back about May 1st. So if we take a look at the May through November rainfall totals from the Mesonet, you can see a statewide average of about 12.4 inches. Now that's over 12 inches below normal, or about 50% of normal over that 7-month period. And in fact, this May through November was the driest May through November on record since 1895. That's what has gotten our drought kick-started again, and why it's still developing and still intensifying as we add that onto the deficits that we've seen over October and November. It's just a continuation. Now let's take a quick look into the future. What do we see coming up for December? This is from the Climate Prediction Center. These are probability maps, so the chances of above or below normal temperatures and precipitation for the month of December. Let's start out with temperatures. We see about a 60 to 75% chance of above normal temperatures for Oklahoma coming up for December, and that's really across much of the United States. Now for precipitation, we see 50 to sometimes greater than 75% odds of below normal precipitation for not only Oklahoma but much of the southern and central plain states. So really a continuation of what we've seen the past few months. Definitely something we don't want to come true. Let's hope that this turns around pretty quickly. Now let's keep in mind we're just now entering our driest time of the year. December through February easily are 3 driest months of the year. So we might be looking at spring until we get major relief, but let's hope we get something before then. Every little bit helps. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Kim Anderson, our grain marketing specialist, joins us now. And Kim, the big stories this week, low water levels on the Mississippi, as well as hard red winter wheat prices. Let's start off with those river levels.
If you look at the Mississippi River, the concern there is getting corn, soybeans, and some soft red winter wheat that's been sold for export down to the Louisiana Gulf so that we can load them out. That water level gets any lower, then we're going to have problems. We won't be able to meet those export contracts. Of course, that's supporting the wheat prices, and if that happens, you can't get that corn down to export on the world market, then there's going to be higher demand for hard red winter wheat that we can get for export.
And of course, we all want some rain around here as well. Hard red winter wheat, what's going on with the prices?
Well, right now, if you look at compare our hard red winter wheat prices to the world wheat prices, our prices are above that. It's an example of that is our exports are below where we'd like for them to be. I think what the market's doing is protecting our hard red winter wheat, making sure we have the drought, making sure that we have hard red winter wheat for our millers as we get into the next marketing year.
Okay, and then in terms of prices, why are ours higher than the world prices that you're seeing?
Well, I think it's the market protecting our wheat. Plus, we've got Argentina, their harvest is going on right now, getting near the end of it, and they've got quite a bit of wheat that they want to move out, and they have a tendency to move it out earlier in their marketing year. You've got Australia, their harvest is getting close to ending in the next month. Again, export competition there, moving it out. Canada's harvest spring harvest is over. Their prices are slightly lower than ours, and they're moving that out into the market too. So we're protecting ours, their harvest is fresh, they're moving that on the market. The analysts say that it may be after March before the market prices get up to where our levels are and our export demand increases.
Okay, and that window for exports plays into that as well?
You bet it does, because we've got that sideways movement in our prices right now, and that will probably continue through January and maybe February.
Okay, with that sideways pattern, we've talked a lot about that. How do harvest prices look?
Well, you look at the July contract, that price is above the March Kansas City Board of Trade contract prices, which tells you the tightness of stocks expected for next year. Also, that July contract price trend is up, where the March price contract trend is sideways, and so that says there's concern about this crop, there's concern about wheat stocks, and that tells you why prices are where they are.
Okay, and a lot of producers, kind of some chatter, will we see that $10 wheat?
Well, I'm going to guarantee them $10 wheat by saying there's a minuscule chance that we'll ever see cash wheat prices at $10. I think maybe $9.50, $10, not a chance. That means we'll probably see them before we get into the next harvest.
Kim, you're never wrong, are you?
Never.
Okay. Kim Anderson, we'll see you next week. Thanks a lot.
Hi, welcome to Shop Stop. Today we want to talk about squaring an edge on some rough cut lumber.
Okay. When you buy some rough cut lumber, a lot of times the edges are bowed, and you need to get that edge straight before you can proceed on with whatever it is you're going to fabricate.
So the first thing you want to do is make sure you've got the edges planed down and it's relatively smooth so it'll sit flat on your table saw, and then lay another board across the top of it, and you can screw that down to it, and then use your fence to cut your board.
That's right, and use that thing to get used as a straight edge, a straight board that's attached to your work board, and get that straight edge in there. And you always want to make sure the piece you're going to save is between the fence and the blade if you possibly can. Another quick little table saw trick is you need to have a push stick available when you're using your table saw. And statistics show that 10 fingers are lost a day on table saws.
So, just a few tips on getting that rough cut lumber squared up and some table saw safety. We'll see you next week on Shop Stop.
Now to an option for cattle producers to improve hay nutrition. Dave, you have quite a project going on out here today.
We do, Lyndall. We're going to take some low quality forage and we're going to turn it into some pretty nice quality prairie hay. And the process we're using is called ammoniation, where we just use anhydrous ammonia, inject it into a stack that's covered and sealed, and it changes the chemical profile to the point that the really low quality material, if you're a cow, turns into very good quality hay.
Okay, why don't you walk us through the process, kind of what the steps are and kind of what the recipe is per se.
Sure. There's a fact sheet, which we can link, of course, to the SUNUP website that producers can go to see the details. But essentially, the big picture is that we're going to stack the hay in a format or form that will fit underneath a 40-foot by 100-foot sheet of black plastic. And we're using 6 mil plastic, which just means the heaviest black plastic that you can buy. It needs to be heavy so that we don't poke a lot of holes in it. And then once we cover it, we're sealing it around the edge with some fine rock here today. That will create kind of a gas-proof barrier, and so we'll trap the anhydrous ammonia underneath that plastic tent, if you will. And once the anhydrous has been exposed to the hay for, in warm weather about 2 weeks, and cool weather about a month, you wind up with a really nice quality product.
Okay, what is the injection process involved? What do you need for that step?
The injection is the easiest part of the whole thing, and what we did was we ordered an anhydrous tank that had the amount of anhydrous ammonia that we calculated we would need for this stack of hay. We have 69 round bales of hay under this stack, and they weigh about 1,450 pounds each, so that they're pretty heavy bales. But we calculated that we wanted to inject about 2.5% of the weight of the hay anhydrous, and so we just ordered a tank with that exact amount of anhydrous in, so we didn't have to worry about when to shut the tank off. We'll just pull the tank up here to the stack, poke the hose underneath it, crack the valve open, seal around the hose again with the fine gravel or rock, and then let it slowly work its way into the stack of hay.
Dave, let's go take a look at a bale that's already been ammoniated, and we can talk about the benefits then for the cattle.
Okay.
Dave, tell me what we have here.
This is a bale of wheat straw that has been ammoniated prior to this by a producer down around the Guthrie area. He ammoniated this about a month ago, and so it went from the kind of the light tan or khaki wheat straw color to more of a caramel color, and that's common with ammoniation. Most hay types are going to turn a darker color, and it's because a chemical reaction occurs in the fiber portion of the hay, and actually if you feel the texture, it's much softer after the ammoniation process has taken place.
So does that mean it's richer and more nutrients then?
It is. The crude protein content of this hay is about a little over 9%. Before we ammoniated it, it was just a touch under 4%. And so it would have doubled the crude protein concentration, which of course would reduce your need for expensive protein supplementation this winter for the cow herd. The other thing that happened is that, and has been documented time and time again through the research that's been done on ammoniation, is that the digestibility increased in this particular batch of hay from about 47% up to 52%, which is a very substantial increase in energy for the cow. The last thing I'll tell you about ammoniation, Lyndall, is that it is very palatable. You and I can smell the ammonia coming off of this bale of hay right now. If you open the stack and let it air out for maybe a day or two before you feed it, it's generally not a problem. People are concerned about that, but the cows don't seem to mind at all. It's very, very palatable to them.
Okay, and then you mentioned some of the benefits, but how does that translate then to benefits for the herd?
The bottom line is you should expect improved animal performance, or you could reduce the amount of hay that you needed to feed, because every bit that they consume, they're actually mining more nutrients from it had you not ammoniated it.
You kind of looked at the cost benefits and what this means with ammoniated hay versus supplements.
If you look at a concentrate supplement that's generally going to provide protein and energy, just from a general standpoint, the value of ammoniation in the calculations that we did with this particular hay meant that we could cut back on winter supplement, the concentrate supplement, by about half of what we would have had to fed with the hay, not being ammoniated.
So that really adds up after a winter.
A big savings, yes.
Okay, well, we appreciate the demonstration and the information today.
You bet. Welcome. Thank you for coming out.
Okay, and for more information and a link to that fact sheet that Dave mentioned, just go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
As you remember, on last week's Cow-Calf Corner, we talked about the importance of having 2-year-olds in good body condition at calving time, and one of the key reasons was so that that 2-year-old would give her genetic maximum amount of first milk or colostrum to her baby calf, and in that way he has the best chance of having some disease protection. But it's inevitable that as we approach this next spring calving season, that we'll have some of these heifers that just aren't giving enough milk, perhaps a situation where the calf was born through a very long dystocia, a difficult birth, he's sluggish, he doesn't get up, and we have to provide colostrum ourselves. There's 2 different kinds of commercial products that are available, and I think it's important that you understand the difference. You can buy a colostrum supplement or a colostrum replacer. Now, the difference between the supplement and the replacer is the amount of immunoglobulin G that is in those products. If it has more than 100 grams of immunoglobulin G, then it's called a replacer. And research shows that we can use that to totally replace the first milk that a cow or heifer should have given that calf. Those that are called supplements that have less than that amount are only going to be just that. They're only going to just help boost and give a little extra immunoglobulin to that calf that perhaps nurses that first calf heifer but just doesn't get enough colostrum. You'll find there's quite a difference in price. The replacer will cost about 3 times as much as the supplement. It's probably a good idea to have some of these products on hand before the calving season begins so that you can grab one in the middle of the night, in the middle of the winter, when you discover that you've got that calf that just needs that extra colostrum immediately so that he has a chance to get the best disease protection possible. We want to keep as many of these calves alive as possible because, of course, the high price that they're going to bring next year when we bring them to town at marketing time. We hope this gives you a little better idea of the difference between a colostrum supplement and a colostrum replacer. And we sure look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
We're continuing with our vintage series of photos here on SUNUP with Young Showman. If you have a vintage Oklahoma agricultural photo, send it to us via the address on the screen or scan it and send it to sunup@okstate.edu and we'll feature it on the calendar.
A lot of people have concerns about the recent wildfires that we've had here in Oklahoma and what that's going to mean to the plant community and if there's going to be a response or if they need to come in and replant that area. If we're talking about a native plant community, in almost every circumstance, replanting is not necessary. These plants are adapted to fire, even extreme wildfire. And as you can see on the site that we're at here today, This is 2 years post-fire, and this fire was really extreme. It was under hot conditions, very dry, fairly low humidity. It was tremendous amounts of red cedar on this site and very little herbaceous or grass and forb understory. But once all those cedars were consumed, the site was essentially ash and bare ground. There was no ground cover whatsoever. And we've been through 2 very bad drought years since that fire. And even under those drought conditions, you can see that there's been a tremendous herbaceous response. There's a lot of broadleaf forbs on this site, but it's starting to return to a grass-dominated site, mostly little bluestem. What we found is that even under extreme wildfire conditions, it's very difficult to kill native grasses. This is whether it's summer or dormant season, see a rapid response once precipitation comes back to these sites. And in the interim, this has been a really good wildlife area. We've had a lot of use of northern bobwhite, white-tailed deer, wild turkey, and mourning dove. And as this site progresses, it's going to start to transition back to a shrub and grass-dominated site, and there'll be other wildlife that use it. But in general, when you have wildfire conditions, you know, the tendency is to think about what you need to do to rehabilitate that site. But in almost every circumstance, all you need is a little time and rain.
That'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime online at sunup.okstate.edu. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you next time at SUNUP.